I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about this kind of betrayal, but here I am. My name's David and I'm 35. I've been with my wife, Amanda, for about 8 years now. We got married pretty young and honestly, I always thought we were solid. She was smart, beautiful, and seemed to have her shit together. We had a pretty normal life, good jobs, a nice apartment, friends, the usual. But somewhere along the way, I started noticing little things that didn't sit right. Nothing huge, just enough weirdness to make me question if I really knew her anymore. It started with small stuff. She'd be on her phone more often, hiding the screen when I came into the room, texting late at night when I was already asleep. I'd find her giggling at her phone, and she'd quickly hide it or shove it in her purse. She'd come home from work more stressed than usual, snapping at me over the tiniest things, acting like I was the one messing up her life. I brushed it off at first, told myself it was just work stress or her period, whatever. But then I caught her lying about where she was going one night. She said she was going to her sister for some family thing, but I saw her car parked outside a hotel downtown. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I felt that gut punch of suspicion. I didn't say anything right away. I just watched her, waited. She came back the next morning, acting normal, but I noticed her phone was missing. I asked her about it and she brushed me off, said she'd left it at her sister. That was the first real crack in our perfect little surface. Then came the emails hidden in her drafts folder, full of flirtatious messages with someone named Jax. I read half of them before it hit me like a truck. They weren't just friendly chats, they were downright sexual, talking about how she loved the way he touched her, how she couldn't wait to see him again. I felt sick. My stomach turned into knots and my mind started racing. I knew that night she went out to the hotel, she was with him. I had enough now. I knew everything I needed to know, but I still didn't want to believe it. It was like I'd been punched in the gut and I couldn't breathe. I decided I had to confront her. I waited until she was in the shower, then I grabbed her phone, scrolled through her messages, her emails, everything I could find. It was worse than I thought. There were pictures, detailed plans about the hotel, the times she'd be there, what she'd wear, what she wanted to do with him. God, reading those messages, I felt like my world was collapsing. How could she lie so effortlessly? How many times had she been sneaking around? I was furious, hurt, betrayed all at once. I wanted to smash something, wanted to scream, but I just sat there, trembling, clutching her phone like it was a weapon. When she finally came out of the shower, I was waiting there, her phone in my hand. She saw it and froze. Her eyes darted around like she was trying to find an escape route. I didn't even let her speak yet. I just looked at her and said, "Who is Jax? Tell me the truth." Her face twisted with annoyance like I was bothering her. She rolled her eyes and snapped, "It's nothing. Just some guy from work, it's not a big deal." But I knew better. I knew it was more than just some guy. That was the moment I realized this wasn't some one-time thing. This was planned, deliberate. My wife, my partner, had been lying to my face, cheating on me with her boss during her supposed business trips. And I didn't even know her anymore. I still remember the way her eyes flicked as she lied, trying to downplay it, trying to make me think I was overreacting or imagining things. But I wasn't stupid. I had the evidence right there in my hand. Her messages were clear, explicit even. She was telling him things she never told me, how she wanted to feel his hands on her, how she loved the thrill of sneaking around. I felt like my chest was tightening, like I'd been punched in the gut all over again. It was a mix of shock, rage, and deep, aching sadness. I couldn't believe I had been so blind, so trusting. She scoffed when I asked her why she did it. "You're overthinking, David. It's just sex, it doesn't mean anything. I'm not leaving." "You," she said, crossing her arms like that made it all okay. But I knew better. I could see the smirk on her face, like she thought she was in control, like she was outsmarting me. That pushy attitude, the way she dismissed it all, it made me feel even more betrayed. How could she be so cavalier about something so serious? I felt like I was losing my mind, trying to process that the woman I married was capable of this level of deception. The thing that really hurt was how she lied so easily. She had 1,000 excuses ready, saying she did it because I was working too much, because she was bored, because she hated her job and needed an escape. She called it just sex, like it was some trivial thing that didn't threaten our entire marriage. But I knew better. I knew it was more than that. She was chasing some kind of rush, some forbidden thrill she couldn't get from me anymore. And what crushed me most was the way she looked at me, like I was the problem when she was the one sneaking around behind my back. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing over everything I had just learned. I kept asking myself, how long has this been going on? Was there ever a moment she truly loved me? Or was I just some placeholder until she found someone better? The more I thought about it, the more I realized I didn't even recognize her anymore. She turned into someone I didn't know, bitchy, manipulative, and completely devoid of remorse. She kept telling me she loved me, but her actions told a different story. I finally decided I had to do something about it. I couldn't just sit here and accept this betrayal. I wanted to confront her again, get her to admit everything. I also knew I had to plan my next move carefully. I wasn't just going to storm out and make a scene. That wouldn't fix anything, but it would give her the upper hand. No, I needed to be strategic. I needed to know what her next move was, how deep this went, and whether there was any way to salvage what we had, or if I was about to lose the woman I thought I knew. So I stayed up all night, watching her from the shadows, trying to gauge her mood, her reactions. I kept thinking about what I'd say, how I'd lay everything out. I was angry, yes, but underneath that anger was a profound sense of loss, the loss of trust, the loss of the woman I loved. I told myself I'd give her one last chance to explain herself. If she lied again, I'd know I was done. That was the plan, at least that's what I convinced myself. But deep down, I knew this wasn't just about one night or one lie. It was about everything. Everything I had given her, everything I believed in crumbling right before my eyes. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been run over by a truck. My head was pounding and I couldn't shake off the cold, sick feeling inside. I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine like I hadn't seen what I saw. That afternoon, I sat down with her again, this time more determined than ever. I told her I knew about her affair, about Jax, about everything I'd found. Her reaction. She rolled her eyes, sighed dramatically, and tossed her hair like I was just some jealous boyfriend. "Oh, please, David," she said, voice dripping with irritation. "Can we just stop this drama? It's not a big deal. I was drunk or bored or whatever. It's just sex. It doesn't mean anything. It's not like I'm leaving you or anything. You're overreacting." Her tone was dismissive, almost bitchy, as if she couldn't care less about how much she was hurting me. She kept saying it was just sex, like that made everything okay, like I should just forget I saw those messages and move on. I looked at her trying to keep my cool, but inside I was boiling. I felt the last bits of trust vanish. I told her it wasn't just about the sex. It was about the betrayal, the lies, the fact that she had been lying to my face for months. I asked her how she could be so selfish, so manipulative, and so dismissive of what she'd done. I told her I felt like a fool, like I'd been living in a dream, only to wake up and find out my wife was sleeping around with her boss during business trips. She shrugged. "Look, I don't want to fight about this. I don't see why it's such a big deal. We're still married, right? Nothing going to change." Her words cut deeper than I expected. I realized she wasn't even trying to hide her disdain now. She was tired of the whole thing, like I was just some obstacle she had to deal with. That realization made me feel sick again. How did I get here? How did the woman I married turn into this cold, bitchy version of herself? I told her I needed time to think, that I wasn't going to just forgive and forget. She rolled her eyes again and said, "Take all the time you want. Honestly, I don't care. I've got what I want, and if you're too insecure to handle it, that's your problem." That was when I felt a surge of anger, pure, raw anger, not just at her, but at myself for ever trusting her. I knew that was the moment I had to make a decision. I couldn't keep living in this chaos, pretending everything was okay when I knew the truth. I left the house that day feeling like I'd been hollowed out. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't stop thinking about how someone I loved so much was capable of lying, cheating, and acting like she didn't give a damn. I felt like I'd lost my best friend, my partner, and a part of myself. It was the kind of pain that sticks with you, that changes everything. I kept replaying her words, her dismissiveness, her arrogance, wondering if I had ever really known her at all, or if I was just fooling myself all these years. Deep down, I knew this wasn't going to be fixed overnight. Whatever was left of this marriage was on life support now, and I wasn't sure I wanted to save it. But I also knew I couldn't keep living in denial. I had to face what was real, whether that meant fighting for her or walking away. The only thing I knew for certain was that my whole world had shifted and I was left standing there, broken but still trying to breathe. After that confrontation, everything changed. I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. The girl I married, the woman I thought I knew, she was gone, replaced by this cold, bitchy version who seemed to think she was untouchable. I kept thinking about how she dismissed everything, how she justified her cheating like it was just a petty mistake. That's when I realized I had to take control of the situation. I couldn't let her keep pulling the strings like she was above it all. I started planning my next move carefully, trying to figure out how to get some clarity without making things worse. For a few days, I kept my distance, pretending everything was normal, but inside, I was simmering with rage and hurt. I didn't want to just walk away without knowing what I was really dealing with. I started digging into her phone and email accounts more thoroughly, trying to find out if this was just a one-time thing or if there was more. I needed to know the extent of her betrayal, how deep the rabbit hole went. It was a fucked up situation, but I couldn't ignore the evidence anymore. The messages, the pictures, the hotel receipts, they all pointed to one thing. She was cheating on me, and she'd been doing it for a while. One night, I found a receipt for a hotel stay during her supposed business trip, but it was paid with her secret credit card. I looked at the dates. She'd been gone for 2 nights, just like she said, but her phone pinged near the hotel both nights. I looked up the GPS data and it confirmed she was there. At the same time, she claimed to be working late. I felt like I was losing my mind, realizing how much of her lies I'd bought into. I'd always believed her, trusted her, but now I saw she'd been hiding this whole secret life. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time with solid proof. I started preparing myself for whatever she might say. I wanted her to admit everything, to finally come clean. I didn't want to be the guy who just found out and then let her talk her way out of it again. I was ready to hear the truth, no matter how bad it was. I wanted to know if this was just a fling, or if she'd been cheating on me for months with her boss during every trip she took. The thought made me sick, but I had to face it. When I finally sat her down, I laid everything out. The receipts, the GPS data, the messages. Her reaction was immediate. She looked annoyed, like I was bothering her again. She rolled her eyes and snapped, "You're crazy, David. You're just paranoid. Why are you obsessing over this? It's none of your business." That bitchy attitude hit me hard. She was trying to dismiss me, dismiss the whole thing like I was just some jealous fool. But I wasn't going to be silenced anymore. I told her I wasn't leaving any room for her lies. I knew what she'd done and I wasn't going to act like it was okay. That night I felt the full weight of everything, the betrayal, the lies, the heartbreak. I'd been with her for so long, invested so much in this marriage, and now it all felt like it was crumbling. I realized I was at a crossroads. Do I fight for her, try to fix this mess, or do I walk away? I didn't have an answer yet, but I knew I couldn't go back to pretending everything was fine. The truth was out, and it changed everything. I was left with a choice: stay and try to rebuild, or leave and accept that I'd been blindsided by someone I thought I knew. Either way, I knew my life would never be the same. In the days that followed, I felt like I was in some kind of limbo. My mind kept racing between anger, despair, and a strange sense of clarity. I wasn't sure what I wanted yet, but I knew I couldn't keep living in this emotional mess. Every time I looked at Amanda, her smirk, her dismissiveness, it all made me realize how much of a fool I'd been. I started thinking about all the moments I'd ignored, the times I brushed off her bitchy attitude, the days I thought she was just stressed. Turns out, she was hiding a whole other life from me. I decided I had to get some space, so I moved out of the apartment for a while. I needed to think clearly away from her. I stayed with a friend for a few days, trying to process everything. The more I thought, the more I realized I didn't want to be with someone who lied so effortlessly, who dismissed my feelings like they were nothing. I wasn't just hurt, I was angry, furious actually. How dare she treat our marriage like some game? I kept replaying her words, "It's just sex. It's not a big deal," and I felt the bile rise in my throat. Sex, she said. Yeah, right. During that time apart, I started talking to a few friends trying to get some advice. One of them told me I deserved better, that no one should accept being cheated on and lied to like that. That struck a chord. Honestly, I'd always believed that marriage was about trust, about loyalty. But now I saw that Amanda was someone who was willing to throw all that away for some fleeting thrill with her boss. That realization hit me hard. I've been living in denial, convincing myself that things would get better, that she'd change. But clearly, her bitchy attitude and selfishness had nothing to do with me, and everything to do with her own needs. I spent hours going over what I'd do next. Part of me wanted to confront her again, to demand she come clean, tell me everything she'd done. But another part of me knew that could backfire. She was manipulative, and I wasn't sure I could trust her to be honest this time. Plus, I was tired, drained. Emotionally, I didn't want to be caught in some endless cycle of her lying and me catching her. I just wanted clarity, a definitive answer about what I was supposed to do. I knew I needed to make a choice, either fight for us or walk away completely. One thing was clear, I had to put myself first. I'd spent enough years putting her needs before mine, ignoring the signs, forgiving her bitchy attitude, making excuses. I realized I'd been giving her too much power, and that was my mistake. Now I needed to stand up and decide whether this marriage was worth saving, or if it was already dead in the water. I didn't want to be the guy who stayed out of guilt or because I was scared of being alone. I'd been betrayed deeply, and now I had to face the consequences of that betrayal, whether it meant fighting for her or walking away for good. As I sat alone in that quiet apartment, I felt the weight of everything I'd lost. Trust, respect, even the hope that things could get better. I was tired but also strangely relieved. I finally saw her for who she really was, bitchy, selfish, and unfaithful. I still didn't know exactly what I'd do next, but I knew one thing. I'd never let anyone manipulate me or treat me like a fool again. This was a turning point. My world had been rocked, but I was starting to realize I had to rebuild from the ground up, without her. And honestly, that felt like the only way forward. In the end, I decided that walking away was the only thing left for me to do. I couldn't keep pretending that this marriage was salvageable when I knew deep down she had been lying, cheating, and treating me like I was disposable. I sat her down one last time, told her I knew everything, and that I was done. Her reaction. She looked annoyed, like I was the one overreacting, like her betrayal was no big deal. That was the final nail in the coffin. I realized I'd wasted so much time trying to see the good in someone who didn't deserve it. I moved out for good, left the apartment, and started rebuilding my life from scratch. It wasn't easy. There were nights when I doubted myself, felt like I'd lost everything I cared about. But with each passing day, I gained clarity and strength. I stopped questioning whether I was enough. Instead, I focused on healing, learning to trust myself again, understanding that I deserved honesty and respect. The pain of betrayal slowly turned into a hard-won lesson. Never ignore the signs, never dismiss your gut feelings, and never sacrifice your self-respect for someone who clearly doesn't value it. Looking back, I realized that this experience, brutal as it was, taught me something vital. It's better to be alone than to be with someone who doesn't respect you. Better to face the loneliness than to stay trapped in a relationship built on lies. My wife's bitchy attitude, her lies, her selfishness, none of that was about me. It was a reflection of her own issues, her own flaws. I refused to carry that baggage anymore. I've learned to value myself more, to trust my instincts, and to recognize that sometimes walking away is the bravest thing you can do. To anyone reading this, I'll say this. Don't settle for being lied to. Don't ignore the signs, and don't keep making excuses for someone who doesn't deserve your loyalty. Love is built on trust, respect, and honesty. Those are missing, everything else is just empty. I've come out of this stronger, more aware of what I need and what I won't tolerate. And honestly, that's the biggest lesson of all. Life is too short to be with someone who treats you like an option, not a priority. I'm moving forward now, finally free from the betrayal, ready to find someone who will actually value me, someone who won't lie, cheat, or treat me like I'm nothing. That's what I deserve, and I hope everyone out there finds the courage to walk away when the time comes.